It's Monday, October 4th, 2010. In this week's BeakerBeat, Mr. Weldon goes to Washington, but will his testimony quell an angry government committee? Plus, it's a big day for device makers in the FDA. Find out why. And women may live longer with less sleep. How much they need and why that's good for their significant others coming up. All that and more on this week's edition of BeakerBeat.
Off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. We hear he is a wizard of a whiz, if ever a whiz there was.
Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of BeakerBeat. I'm Mike Justice, thanks for tuning in. Well, like Dorothy's long, hard road to Oz, J&J Chief Bill Weldon had to talk to a fiery panel, and what they decide could affect his trip back home to Kansas. To his credit, he displayed the best traits of the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion. During the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform's hearing regarding Johnson & Johnson's recalls of children's meds, CEO Bill Weldon showed his brains, his heart, and his courage. He took responsibility for the recalls, Tin Man style. Quote, "I know that we let the public down. I accept full accountability for the problems, and I will take full accountability for fixing them." End quote. He also admitted the company secretly bought up defective drugs without informing regulators and consumers. This was Weldon's first appearance before lawmakers, but the second hearing into the multiple recalls of J&J products, including the so-called phantom recall of Motrin tablets in 2009. Weldon added, quote, "We are doing everything in our power to never let this happen again." That, however, was met with some skepticism. Chairman Adolphus Towns said, quote, "There is often a thin line between working cooperatively and having a cozy relationship. The documents we have seen in this case indicate this line may have been crossed early and often." In other words,
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
Then Weldon channeled both the Lion and the Scarecrow, showing his toughness and putting a smart spin on the issue. He said that after a long absence from stores, the company will start shipping some of its recalled OTC children's drugs to retailers next week. They had been produced at the company's Fort Washington, PA plant, which was closed in May after an FDA inspection, but will now be produced at McNeil's Canadian facility. So at the end of the hearing, Weldon clicked the heels of his ruby slippers 3 times and went back home to his dirt farm in Kansas, all the while singing songs of that rock band Toto. Or something like that. Anyway, next up, the FDA, aka the Lollipop Guild.
We represent the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild.
Deputy FDA Commissioner Joshua Sharfstein was next, and he said J&J's activities are the perfect example as to why the FDA needs to be given authority to mandate recalls. That's when the committee turned on him, saying FDA reps aren't exercising all the authority at their disposal and questioning how expanded agency authority can help. Representative Darrell Issa said, quote, "The pattern emerging at FDA is one of carelessness, deficiency, and untruthfulness. The government has failed to do its job." You know, the way that panel pounced on him, it reminds me of something. So tell us what you think about this story or any story that you see in today's show. It's very simple. You click on the orange button below me. A box will pop up. You type in your comment. Send it to me. I promise I'll read and respond to every one of them. And when you're done watching BeakerBeat, check out Beaker's blog, where you can see an interview with the CEO whose company could be the next big hit in cancer treatment. Plus, do you know which company sells 1 out of every 12 drugs sold in the U.S.? Probably not. Find out how they grab so much market share. All that and more on Beaker's blog. So today, October 4th, is a banner day in history. No, it's not my birthday. But here are some examples. Belgium was formed, Sputnik 1 launched, Buster Keaton was born, and Secretariat died. That's the best I could do. Anyway, it's also a landmark day for the medical devices industry in the United States. Today is the final day for the public to present feedback to the agency regarding some 70-plus changes to be applied to the 510K approval process. After that, the FDA will begin to make a decision, but what that will be is anyone's guess, and that has industry trade group AdvaMed concerned. AdvaMed has released a study hoping to minimize any changes, claiming it's better to use a scalpel rather than an axe. Backing the cause is a study that reveals that less than 1% of devices cleared since 1998 were involved in significant Class 1 recalls that could cause serious injury or death. One potential sticking point is the FDA's proposal to establish a Class 2B category for medium-risk devices. AdvaMed came up with the idea, but the proposed version is different, and AdvaMed believes it could lead to the extensive reclassification of products and pose additional requirements to device firms. That doesn't sound like a way to improve the 510K process at all. We'll tell you what the FDA decides in the coming weeks. Time for some quick hits now, and the FDA has approved the first oral drug for the treatment of the most common form of multiple sclerosis.
Novartis received FDA Advisory Committee approval by a unanimous vote in June, and now the drug has the FDA's approval for patient treatment. Unlike current MS drugs, which are given by injections or infusion, this new drug, called Gilenya, comes in a convenient daily capsule dosage form. Multiple sclerosis affects about 2.5 million people in the world and over 400,000 people in the United States alone. What causes MS is still not known, and Gilenya is not a cure but a treatment to lessen the progression and symptoms of MS. According to Novartis, Gilenya can cut the relapse rate of patients by more than 60%. On the heels of Abbott Labs cutting 3,000 jobs, Bristol-Myers Squibb is making cuts as well. BMS says it will cut its workforce by 3% over the next 6 months, which equates to about 800 jobs. There's no specific area BMS is targeting. It's part of a streamlining initiative at the drug maker, which faces generic competition for its top-selling drug Plavix, a $6.5 billion seller, coming in 2012. BMS is already in the midst of a $2.5 billion cost-cutting plan and cut 7,000 jobs last year. Is Brazil the new China for drug makers? Data Monitor recently released a new report quantifying just why Brazil stands to attract more foreign drug makers. The retail drug market in Brazil hit $12 billion last year, 14% growth over 2008. And that growth is likely to continue as the Brazilian government improves access to healthcare, the middle class grows, and patients choose brands over generics. Maybe they learned a lesson from J&J. Abbott Labs is voluntarily recalling millions of containers of its top-selling Similac powdered infant formulas. This comes after beetles were found in the products and in the Michigan plant where they are made. Well, this didn't take long. Shortly after an FDA panel's vote against Arena Pharma's weight loss drug Lorcaserin, the lawsuits are beginning to pile up. A number of panelists voiced their concern about tumors found in rats involved in a preclinical study of the drug, and now attorneys are claiming Arena wasn't upfront with investors about all the data that it had on the therapy. Arena's CEO Jack Leaf has defended the company, naturally, and says the cancer data wasn't relevant to humans. That is apparently not very reassuring to investors. Russian regulators are accusing Danish drug maker Novo Nordisk of violating the country's anti-monopoly laws. The diabetes specialist is accused of refusing to make supply deals with some drug distributors, something that would restrict competition in the pharma market. The company faces a fine of up to 15% of its Russian revenues. Novo denies any wrongdoing. Pfizer can't catch a break lately. Its cancer drug Sutent has failed yet another trial, this time for prostate cancer. The company stopped the trial, which was studying Sutent plus prednisone as a treatment for men with advanced prostate cancer. Sutent is approved for kidney cancer and some gastrointestinal cancers, but Pfizer hopes to broaden its use. So far, the drug has missed the mark for lung, liver, and breast cancers. Next up, kidney cancer. We'll let you know how that turns out. Merck is hiring. The company has been steadily adding to its vaccine manufacturing plant in Durham, North Carolina, and now has plans to hire up to 310 new workers there over the next 2 years. Sanofi Aventis is selling out, sort of. The company will sell 2 of its R&D sites in Europe to Covance, while agreeing to pay the CRO up to $2.2 billion over 10 years to handle an important part of its R&D work. Covance will maintain employment on these sites for at least the next 5 years. For Covance, the 10-year Sanofi contract is similar to the 10-year pact struck with Eli Lilly in 2008. In that deal, Covance bought one of Lilly's facilities in Indiana and lined up $1.6 billion worth of R&D work then. In an unrelated move, Covance also announced plans to buy back $250 million worth of its stock. 3M will buy Eden Prairie, Minnesota-based Arizant as it builds its infection prevention division. Arizant creates warming products using forced air to prevent hypothermia during surgery. This is the 3rd acquisition for that 3M division in 2 weeks. The others, Cogent and Attenti Holdings, are worth $1.5 billion.
A reminder now, we're only a couple of weeks away from AdvaMed 2010, the MedTech conference, and Beaker will be there.
This October, life sciences CEOs and executives from around the world will gather in Washington, D.C. for AdvaMed 2010, the MedTech conference. Unlike traditional industry conventions, this conference brings together top industry insiders with a wide range of meaningful subjects up for discussion. From regulatory affairs and reimbursement to IP and business development, if it's important to the industry, you will find it here. Guests will include Dr. Margaret Hamburg and CBS News anchor Katie Couric, along with hundreds of industry leaders. Beaker is an official media partner, and we invite you to join us there. Click on the link on our homepage to learn more and register for your spot at AdvaMed 2010, the MedTech Conference.
Finally today, remember how your mom told you that you needed to get 8 hours of sleep a night? She was wrong. Again. Turns out you need less, especially if you're a woman.
According to a 14-year study at UC San Diego, scientists found that 5 to 6.5 hours of sleep a night was the optimum level for women's longevity. Previous studies had posited that sleeping 6.5 to 7.5 hours per night was associated with the best survival.
So the good news for men here is, if your wife says she's too tired for smooching, you don't have to wait as long the next day to ask her again. Well, that's it for this week's edition of BeakerBeat. I'm Mike Justice. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week. Oh, and about the Clemson hat. Our boss, Jeffrey Clark, I hear he's a big Clemson fan. Sit, Beaker. Sit. Good dog. We represent the Lollipop Guild. The Lollipop Guild.